So, greetings and welcome everyone. I'm Nicola Dyer, Senior Advisor at the Global Seaweed Coalition, and it's my pleasure to guide this conversation today. We do have some more people coming in, but we're going to get started because we have a packed agenda and it's going to be a really exciting event. And we do need to have the presentation up. So huge thanks to Caroline from the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition for starting to bring that up. So next slide, please. On behalf of all of the organizing partners, let me welcome you to this official side event at the 2025 UN High-Level Political Forum. I'm delighted to represent the Global Seaweed Coalition here. GSC is a global partnership that was established to support the safe and sustainable scale-up of the seaweed sector, grounded in science. Our communications manager, Azadine Badiz, who is having some connection difficulties, is in theory going to post some additional information about the coalition in the chat. We may need to come back to that and may need some help from somebody else looking at you, Anushka, in case. So, couple of housekeeping details before we get into the substance. For those who are online, may need to repeat this as more come online, but please do let us know who you are. We're not quite at that one yet, if you can just stick with the partners. Good morning, people arriving in the room. We are already live, so for those online, please let us know who you are and your institutional affiliation by posting in the chat. Throughout, please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We're going to be monitoring that and getting your questions to the speakers, whether it's Azadine or somebody else will be doing that, and they'll flag those to me so that we can air them during the Q&A portion, and that may fall to you, Caroline. So for those who are here in UN Trade and Development's New York office, please feel free to participate online as well, or in person to let me know directly if you've got any questions. Our objective with this event is, well, we've got a couple. It's first of all to discuss the multifaceted contributions seaweed is making to and its potential to do even more for the achievement of goals 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17. That is the goals under review at this HLPF. We're also going to hear how it contributes to other goals. And we're also going to talk about the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, a very exciting new partnership that was presented at the recent UN Ocean Conference in Nice, and the road to the next UN General Assembly and beyond. So let me take you through the agenda. And again, we are going to have people trickling in, so apologies for that. That's what happens when you do these online hybrid events. First, we're going to be welcomed by our host, Mr. Juan Jose Martinez Badillo, who's chief here in the UNCTAD New York office, and by Dr. Ike Levine, who's here representing the International Seaweed Association, an important partner of Global Seaweed Coalition, and the partner which actually officially submitted this side event proposal. Next, we'll be honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Minister Poubert Tsimanawati Mahatant, Minister of Fisheries and the Blue Economy of Madagascar. He's going to speak about Madagascar's strategic approach to seaweed and its global leadership in the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. Following these framing perspectives, we're going to do a deep dive into seaweed's contributions to the SDGs under review at this HLPF. For that, we're privileged to have 6 extraordinary panelists, some in the room, some online, each presenting on one of the featured SDGs. For SDG 3, Dr. Shakuntala Tilstad, 2021 World Food Prize laureate, is supposed to be here, and we hope she's not having connection issues. SDG 5, Runa Ray, who is here in the room, so we know she's here, a fashion environmentalist dedicated to transforming the fashion industry through sustainable innovation. SDG 8, Harrison Carissa, who'll be presenting online from Washington, D.C. He's tirelessly advancing the World Bank's engagement on seaweed. We really appreciate that. SDG 14, Professor Juliette Brody, who's one of the world's leading experts on seaweeds, and she has research leadership in biodiversity, conservation, community science, and seaweed aquaculture. And for SDG 17, we're going to have 2 presenters. So first, Chantaline Carpentier, who is head of the Trade, Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development Branch for UN Trade and Development in Geneva, and Dr. Jan Matas, who is here in the room, who is the French National Research Center's North America Director, so CNRS's North America Director. We're then going to hear some further reflections on seaweed's contributions to the SDGs from the chair of Global Seaweed Coalition's Strategic Advisory Council, Ms. Anushka Concepcion, who is here in the room. Then we're going to open the floor to interventions and questions from member state representatives and other participants, both in the room and online. Finally, Jacques Tellier, well, actually not quite finally, Jacques Tellier, France's Deputy Ambassador for the Ocean and Poles. He will share perspectives on the road to the upcoming UN General Assembly and beyond. And we're going to close with the online portion of the event. So the not exactly was, for those attending in person, we have a real treat. Please stay around to enjoy a seaweed treat offered by Chef Andrew Wilkinson. And Andrew's going to give us, he's going to give a few remarks right before that. So everybody online can get a virtual taste. So with that, with all of that, let's begin. Juan Jose, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nicola. I will be brief. I'm definitely not an expert. I'm here more on learning mode today, but I wanted to welcome you all on behalf of UNCTAD, and in particular, as in my hat, wearing my hat as chief of the UNCTAD New York office, welcome you to the New York office. And I would like to start, of course, by thanking our co-organizers, France, the International Seaweed Association, the UN Global Compact, UNIDO, World Bank, African Union Development Agency, Global Seaweed Coalition, French National Research Center, let me breathe, Scottish Association for Marine Science, and the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition. I hope I'm not missing anybody. And we're coming together again this year to keep this issue present at HLPF. We were here just about a year ago, actually. And there was some very good feedback to this initiative. From UNCTAD's perspective, our mandate is our original mandate is the beneficial integration of developing countries into the global economy. And usually we approach this in how do we make sure that growth, prosperity can work in favor of sustainable and inclusive development, because growth and development, growth and improvement in people's lives are not necessarily always going hand in hand. And that, having said that, we of course have to consider all dimensions of sustainable development. We have economic, social, and environmental, because otherwise we have this kind of stool that cannot stand if we have one leg missing. But still, our main lens is the economic lens. And we deal with an array of issues. Chantaline, who was my predecessor in this position, would confirm. We change hats every day. But what happens, there is a friction that happens sometimes, that we have to walk a fine line when we approach issues that our partners will see more as issues of conservation, while from our point of view, those would be more issues of sustainable livelihood, sustainable use, rather than conservation. And those are not necessarily the same. However, seaweed is one of those good examples, rare examples, where the trade-offs are limited. So we don't have this conflict, this tension between conservation and sustainable use. And this is because we see, and of course we learned that last year, and we'll hear some more this year, how the actions, that the contributions of seaweed to different SDGs work in a synergetic manner. Of course, still from an economic point of view, this industry has huge potential. It's one of the fastest growing sectors in marine aquaculture. You know, the 20 years, the first 20 years of this century grew from 5 billion to over 17 billion. And there is, increased relevance across the SDGs, as was mentioned by Nicola. But despite this potential, this sector is still underdeveloped. It lacks governance, harmonized standards, and coordinated investment. And these gaps, in turn, then limit the capacity for that contribution, that economic contribution and contribution on the social and environmental dimensions to go forward. So, at least from our perspective, we have a strong commitment to advancing SDG 14, inclusive and sustainable ocean-based economies, and we believe that such coordinated multilateral action that I mentioned before that is lacking is necessary to move together seaweed is one example of an industry that can benefit highly from that coordinated approach. So that takes us to the launch of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, which was announced at the third UN Ocean Conference in Nice about a month ago, just over a month ago. And this, of course, we see as a logical next step in addressing these structural challenges that I mentioned before. So to provide policy coordination, regulatory alignment, knowledge exchange among interested member states and the UN agencies. We from UNCTAD have our humble contribution to this process. We have a mandate, as I mentioned, on trade, development, and sustainable use of oceans and the ocean-based resources. And of course, we have our three pillars of work: research analysis, consensus building, and technical cooperation. And we intend to contribute from all those areas. So just to give you a few examples of the things that we're trying to work on to contribute to the coalition, to the initiative. A global database on ocean trade flows, including seaweed, regulatory frameworks, and market trends. A global mapping of seaweed-related regulations and standards. And that work is already ongoing and has identified significant gaps and inconsistencies. The UN Ocean Forum, I think many of you are familiar with that, and the Marine-Based Products and Services Expo, where seaweed is a recurrent focus. And generally on the technical cooperation front, the support to developing countries in strengthening seaweed value chains, particularly addressing food safety, trade readiness, and access to financing. And like I said, this is just an example, a sample of work that we do. And our focus is particularly on the inclusion of small-scale producers, addressing gender equity and nature-positive production practices. So, like I mentioned before, just to wrap up, the contributions of seaweed to sustainable development are manifold. What was the word you used?
Myriad.
A myriad of contributions. And of course, the challenge is now to ensure that the sector is developed in a way that is scientifically grounded, that is socially inclusive, and that is environmentally sustainable. So we feel that, and my colleagues Chantaline and David will elaborate a bit more on that we should start by seeing seaweed not as an emerging niche, but as a legitimate component of a global sustainable development agenda. Welcome again, and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan Jose. We really appreciate that warm welcome and setting the scene. And we're indeed going to hear from Chantaline, or if she's not able to join, then David later on in this event. And now let me turn to our other welcomer, Dr. Ike Levine of the International Seaweed Association. Ike, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to my hometown. I grew up just a couple blocks from here, so it's good to be back, or at least an excuse to come home. And welcome everybody for joining this. I have a bit more, as a co-host, a bit more historical perspective. The International Seaweed Symposium or Association is about 75 years old, and we've put on 25 symposia. Just finishing up in May in Victoria, and in 3 years in Qingdao. It's the largest gathering of academic and commercial seaweed folks around the world. And so the job has always been to recognize the importance of the three sectors that you just talked about. The science that drives it, the training and the sustainability aspect of sharing it with the world. And of course, it has to make some applied sense. Otherwise, there's nothing going to drive this in the end. So just to give you an example, the United Nations has been in the seaweed game for almost 50 years. I don't know if you are aware that they recognize that seaweed farming was an economic development driver in the 70s, and they paid for half of my dissertation. The other half was paid by marine colloids that develops phycocolloid products around the world and still does. And so it's not a new aspect. Max Doty, the father of seaweed farming, was my senior professor, and we developed the farming techniques for the Philippines and Indonesia, which still remains the world leaders in eucumoid farming. Madagascar is here. Again, science, how did that country open up? Well, it was a little too warm to farm seaweeds there, and a collaboration between Don Cheney's lab, Copenhagen Pectin, and our lab developed a warm water cultivar that raised the ability of eucumoids to exist in about 3 degrees warmer temperatures, which opened up the entire east coast of Africa. So these are historical perspectives that have been supported by the United Nations, well, a long time. This is my 50th year as the treasurer of ISA and the CEO of the Algae Foundation. We continue that bridging the gap and merging the talents between the commercial, the applied, the national labs, and academia. And so it's great to see the embracing of seaweed and its expansion. In the 70s, when we started, there were very few, if any, algal farmers. There are about 100,000 algal farmers from subsistent fishermen, and we now, of course, focus on women's groups and cooperatives. We find them to be far more productive, far more able to embrace the details and the efforts involved in seaweed farming, and it's been a great partnership. So you're totally on the right path of success. I mean, from a person who's been an algae lifer, and almost all of the International Seaweed Association folks have either been academics or commercial or both. So I've spent half my time as an academic and the other half owning algae farms or biotech companies. And now that I'm sort of retired from that, we just run the foundation. And so it's been a great partnership. I welcome you all. I think this is going to be terrific. And the ISA is here to support in any way we can this organization, this group, and the formation of the Global Seaweed Initiative. So thank you for having me, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. And we now have the great honor to turn to the Minister of Fisheries and the Blue Economy of Madagascar. And I'm just realizing I may have made a goof here. I'm not sure that I included that in the presentation. So Minister, we may have to ask you to share your screen. I'm so sorry about this.
Well, I didn't prepare any presentation. I just have my speech. And
so please go ahead. And I am very relieved. So Caroline, if you can advance to, there we go, perfect. Minister, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to hearing about Madagascar's efforts and about your leadership globally. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Excellencies, esteemed delegates, friends of the ocean, family in the seaweed, all protocol duly observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. It is my honor and my huge privilege to make these opening remarks as ocean economy offers critical opportunities to enhance food security, value addition, connectivity, and economic diversification. As global demand for aquatic foods has continued to rise and wild fish stocks are increasingly declining, aquaculture has filled the gap, driving a structural shift in the sector from wild harvesting to farming. While fisheries capture has remained stable at approximately 90 million tons since the year 90s, aquaculture production increased from 22 million tons to 94 million tons between 90s and 2022. That is the main reason why the FAO recommended the development of aquaculture as the future of the fisheries worldwide. Over the past 2 decades, the global seaweed industry has tripled in size and doubled in value, reaching more than 36.3 million tons in weight. Today, seaweed and other algae, whether for human consumption or other uses, nearly doubled between the year 2012 and 2022, rising from 677 millions to 1.2 billion USD. However, the seaweed sector remains underdeveloped and underregulated, facing several challenges, including limited support, global weak coordination, lack of standardization, all of which constrain its contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. Dear seaweed actors, ladies and gentlemen, may I recall at UNOC 3, the establishment of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, an important step in fostering a global partnership around seaweed and strengthening policy coordination in the sector was agreed under the leadership of the Republic of Madagascar, the Republic of Indonesia, and the French Republic, with support from several UN agencies together with the academia, private sector, and civil society organizations. In fact, through this official high-level political forum side event, we will showcase seaweed's multifaceted contributions to the SDGs and present the UNGSI as a concrete multi-stakeholder partnership. For the case of Madagascar, for the last decade, we were able to increase the seaweed production from 12,000 tons to 30,000 tons wet weight, but our goal is, in the midterm, to reach 300,000 tons by the year 2030. I mean by that, wet weight, of course. To conclude, I would wish to kindly acknowledge all efforts made by all of the stakeholders, particularly your presence and active participation in this event. I wholeheartedly believe that all of us will join hands, that if all of us will join hands, we will be able to overcome all challenges to improve seaweed governance at global level and make this blue economy subsector more sustainable, equitable, just, and responsible. Ladies and gentlemen, Madagascar is ready to foster action, ready to partner, ready to lead and spread our common vision for a better future. I do thank you.
Minister, thank you. With your leadership, we are sure to see this initiative succeed. And we've already been seeing how you have been bringing additional countries on board. And so we very much appreciate that you are taking the lead in this. And we're also looking forward to hearing a little bit later on about the next steps in this important journey. So thank you very much, Minister. If you're able to stay on, I don't know, but I suspect that people may have questions for you. So it would be wonderful if you're able to stay on. Thank you so much. It's now time for us to turn to our panel. So I already mentioned who was going to be speaking. Our first speaker is going to be talking to us about SDG 3. She is a World Food Prize laureate. Shakuntala is coming to us virtually from, I'm not quite sure where, Denmark or Bangladesh or somewhere else. Shakuntala, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much.
And does your camera, let's get your camera on.
The camera is on and the mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are. Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicola. And you have asked that I focus on SDG 3, good health and well-being. In so doing, I wish to propose that we strive to focus on seaweed for nourishing all people. Seaweed playing an important role as a superfood for nourishing all people, and thereby using seaweed as food and not thinking about medicine, and using seaweed as a superfood to replace the need for medicines. The official figures tell us that about 3 million people cannot afford sustainable, healthy diets, and many of these people live in low and middle-income countries. We are also facing new challenges with respect to health and nutrition. Rapid dietary transitions, the reach of ultra-processed foods high in fat and high in sugars throughout the world, not just in developed countries, but also in poor and middle-income countries. The consequences, as we know, of malnutrition are dire. There is productivity loss in adults, increased costs in healthcare and social safety nets, and as well as perpetuating a cycle of poverty and ill health. A poorly nourished woman gives birth to a poorly nourished child, and this perpetuates intergenerationally. The foods we eat are key to breaking this vicious cycle of poor nutrition, and seaweed as a superfood can play an important role. We do know that there are many population groups, especially in Asian countries, for whom seaweed is an integral food in traditional diets and have been so for many, many generations. There are very many thousands of edible seaweed varieties, we are told, and we do know that these are superfoods with respect to their contents of micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals, which are lacking in the diet of so many people, and especially the poor and vulnerable. Seaweeds contain, in addition to protein, vitamin B12, which is lacking in many plant source foods. It's particularly rich in iodine and also in other micronutrients, to name a few: iron, zinc, calcium, and vitamin A. Also, importantly, the forms of micronutrients found in seaweeds are highly bioavailable, unlike many of the forms which are found in plants in land foods. These micronutrients are important for health, growth, and development for young children, and as well as the health of the elderly. Using the power of seaweed, for example, dried powder, we can further increase the delivery of multiple micronutrients so that we have the opportunity to use seaweed powder as a powerful multiple micronutrient powder. And it's also not just that, but also a powerful source of protein. On top of this, seaweed powder has all the benefits of easy use, storage, and transportation, not requiring refrigeration, and therefore can be very, very important in hard-to-reach communities. Let me give another powerful example of the power of seaweed as a rich source of iodine. Just imagine if we had used the value of seaweed as a source of iodine instead of the salt iodization program, which we have now put in use and used quite a lot of money and efforts for over the last 60, 70 years. And now we are even saying that the intake of salt in populations is too high, so we should be looking at reducing salt. So therefore, that would be an added advantage to use seaweed as a source of iodine and not using the salt iodization program. With all these exciting and powerful values of seaweed, let me leave you with one powerful example that I would like to see us using. And as we move forward now with the UNFFS talk take in Addis at the end of this month, I would propose that seaweed products form a very important part in school feeding programs, making sure that all children receive seaweed as a food from with rich micronutrient sources. We do know, if we go to countries like Japan, that seaweed is an important and integral part of school feeding programs. So those are the examples I want to leave you with, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the discussions. Thank you, Nikolai.
Thank you so much, Shakuntala. I'm really glad that you spoke about the UN Food Systems Summit, and really would like to encourage everybody who is participating in this event, if you're also going to be participating either in person or online in the Food Systems Summit, it's really important to remind that that community of the importance of aquatic foods and of seaweed within there. And of course, Shakuntala, you're so well known for your work on aquatic foods. This is why you won your World Food Prize back in 2021. But Food Systems Summit and then later, and school feeding. And we have a pact, Shakuntala and I, that we are going to continue to put school feeding squarely on the radar here. Time for me to turn to SDG 5, women. Runa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and it's a great honor to be here. I will be concentrating on SDG 5, which is achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls. And for that, Nicola, I have a movie that I hope can be played.
We hope.
And I request everyone to fixate on the screen while use me as background noise.
You're not background noise. There we go.
70 to 80% of the global fashion workforce is made up of women. This includes garment workers, textile workers, seamstresses, and all those in the informal sectors, including models and consumers. In the fashion, design, and retail sector, women also dominate. Over 75% of students are women, 60% of retail and brand employees are women. However, 25% of the executive decision-making positions are not held by women, despite making up most of the workforce. So it is time for the industry to evolve. As a fashion environmentalist seeking solutions within an industry known for its excessive water usage and pollution, I stumbled upon the overlooked power of seaweed. By reviving an ancient Japanese technique called suminagashi, I started using seaweed-based water as a printing medium. Gently splashing inks on the surface and transferring it onto fabric, the result was remarkable. Using just 25 gallons of water, I was able to print 250 meters of fabric. Each print was one of a kind, fluid, organic, alive, echoing the movement and fragility of life underwater. But as a fashion environmentalist, it was also very important for me to trace the origins of seaweed that I was using. So I traveled deep into southern India, where I encountered a group of remarkable women seaweed divers. While the world focuses much on commercially cultivated seaweed grown on rafts, these women practice something far more intimate and dangerous, diving into the ocean to harvest indigenous seaweed by hand. Their work wasn't just cultural or traditional, it was survival. As their husbands ventured deeper into waters to fish, these women earned a modest income to support their families, especially vital in times when fish populations are dwindling due to bottom trawling and climate change. So the next morning, I joined them to experience their world firsthand. Clad in rudimentary gear, they plunged into the waters with sharp skill and instinct, carefully plucking seaweed from the rocks, not with machines, but with their own hands. It was both beautiful yet heartbreaking. And for this labor, they earned just $2 per pound, selling their harvest to middlemen who passed it on to factories for processing it into carrageenan and other seaweed derivatives, used in almost everything from cosmetics to toothpaste and even food. But these women, often unseen and unrecognized, represent something far greater, a model of resilience, knowledge, and environmental stewardship. This is when it really hit me, the truth behind SDG 5. Gender equality came into sharp focus. Was there a way in the fashion industry, an industry that has historically exploited both women and nature, that could become a tool of empowerment and regeneration? Could we harness the very seaweed harvested by these women and even the invasive algae that blocks their harvest and transform it into textiles and packaging, displacing the synthetic, water-hungry materials that are fueling crisis? Could we build a system that employs women from coastal communities, offering new streams of income, rooted in local knowledge and climate resilience? Could we bring back the cottage industry, once lost to globalization, and develop a new form of aquaculture, one that intersects fashion, equity, and environmental justice? Yes, we can, and we will. We will turn waste into wealth. We are creating revolutionary leather, textile, and packaging solutions, all from seaweed. By employing women in coastal communities, we're not just empowering individuals, we're healing an entire system. This is fashion that uplifts, not exploits. This is not just a material revolution, it is the revolution. So join us, choose the ocean, choose women, and choose wisely.
Powerful words from a powerful woman. Thank you so much. And in the realm of quotable quotes, by privileging seaweed, by working on seaweed, we're healing the system. Thank you so much, Runa. Now it is my pleasure to turn to my dear colleague, Dr. Harrison Charo-Carissa of the World Bank. Harrison has been making such progress within the World Bank, working directly and through ProBlue. So Harrison, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nicola, for that introduction. I will be talking on SDG 8, and I find it to be a very good privilege for me to speak with you today about this. It's how we connect sustainable development goal number 8 to seaweed aquaculture. At a time when the world is grappling with the triple crisis of climate change and global warming effects, biodiversity losses, and economic inequality, seaweed farming offers a rare convergence of solutions. It is a nature-based industry that not only regenerates marine ecosystems, but also regenerates livelihoods, especially in coastal communities where economic opportunities are often very scarce. Let me begin with the numbers. According to the World Bank's Global Seaweed New and Emerging Markets report that was published in 2023, the global seaweed market has the potential to grow by an additional $11.8 billion by 2030. This growth is not speculative. It is grounded in real demand for seaweed-based products in food, pharmaceuticals, biofuels, sustainable packaging, and as you have just heard from Aruna, even issues of clothes and fabrics. This has already captured the imagination of many countries desiring to benefit from this opportunity. But what does this mean for SDG 8? First and foremost, job creation. Seaweed farming is labor-intensive and inclusive. In Africa and Southeast Asia, it is predominantly led by women and youth. Seaweed aquaculture has already improved livelihoods in coastal communities across Kenya, Tanzania, Madagascar, and many other countries. Scaling this sector could generate thousands of new jobs, particularly for women. But we are not talking about jobs. We are talking about decent jobs that have seen many women, former women fishers, now able to send their children to school, build better houses, and put nutritious food on the table, thus aligning directly with SDG 8.5 on full and productive employment. With approximately 1.2 billion young people in emerging economies reaching an employment age over the next decade, and only about 420 million jobs expected to be generated, the need to create jobs has never been greater. A back-of-the-envelope calculation indicates that seaweed value chain can contribute nearly 3 million new jobs if the full potential of offshore seaweed farming of 86 million tons of dry seaweed estimated by Ross et al. 2025 is realized. This is not included in the recently published Harnessing the Waters, $1 trillion investment opportunity in sustainable aquaculture report. Second, entrepreneurship and value chains. Seaweed farming is not just about harvesting biomass. It is about unlocking value. The World Bank's Global Aquabusiness Investment Guide emphasizes the importance of building inclusive value chains that support small and medium enterprises. From processing to product innovation, seaweed offers a platform for rural entrepreneurship and economic diversification. Third, resilience and sustainability. Seaweed farming requires no fresh water, no fertilizers, and no arable land. It enhances marine biodiversity and sequesters carbon. As noted in the seaweed in our report, seaweed is a regenerative resource that can uplift communities while restoring ecosystems. This aligns with SDG 8.4, which calls for decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation through resource-efficient approaches. Fourth, policy and investment readiness. Mr. Badillo has already touched on this topic in his speech, his opening remarks. The World Bank outlines a strategic roadmap for aquaculture investment, emphasizing seaweed as a priority sector for achieving SDG 8. These plans call for cross-sectoral collaboration, digital innovation, marine spatial planning, and targeted financing, all essential ingredients for scaling impact. Finally, let us not forget the broader vision. As the seaweed aquaculture for food security, income generation, and environmental health becomes important to many of us, let's not forget that this is not just about jobs. It is about transforming how we feed, how we fuel, and how we sustain our planet. In closing, seaweed aquaculture is more than a blue economy opportunity as far as we are concerned from the World Bank side. It is a green, inclusive, and scalable solution for SDG 8 and many other SDGs as we have already had and we're going to hear. Let us invest in it, innovate with it, and empower communities through seaweed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harrison, for that important and powerful call, and also to really underscore the many important reports and resources, information resources that the World Bank has available on seaweed and on other related topics, including the 2023 report on subsidies to destructive products. And that's something that we might want to come back to later on as we look for opportunities to finance the seaweed sector. Harrison, thank you so much. I'm sure there are going to be questions for you. It is now time for me to turn to another online presenter. So our colleague Liz Cloutier-Cook was unable to come here because of a flight change. So we are delighted, honored, privileged, and many other superlatives to welcome Professor Juliette Brodie of the Natural History Museum in London, who has been doing some, together with her team, she's been doing some important work on the Seaweed Breakthrough. So for SDG 14, Juliette, we look forward to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicola. It's really a privilege to be here. And as I say, I'm standing in for Liz, and I have to say that she gave me the slides last night. And I'm actually sitting in the Linnaean Society in London. I'm actually in another meeting at the same time. Anyway, it's great to be here. And I'm going to talk about SDG 14, Life Below Water. And do these slides move on by you? If you can give me the next slide. Or am I able to do this?
You're not. Caroline is attempting.
Thank you.
There we go.
I think we've missed a slide there.
We did. Something, yeah. It looks like it jumped.
Yeah, okay.
So the laptop she's using is maybe a little unresponsive.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so why consider seaweed in SDG 14? Well, this is life below water. And I think the first thing, as we know, is all the seaweeds contribute to all the SDGs. And the seaweeds are found all around the world, from the poles to the tropics. Wherever you've got the right substrates, you will find seaweeds. And farming and wild seaweed habitats, they support marine biodiversity, they provide essential habitats for marine life, and they maintain healthy marine environments. And the seaweed farms can contribute to the restoration of these degraded coastal ecosystems. The next slide, please. Just to give you some idea of how the seaweeds work, they are red, green, and brown. And this shows you approximately the global area coverage in millions of kilometers by the different seaweed groups. And you'll see immediately that that sort of pink area, these are the subtidal reds, they predominate. And they, of course, are extremely important in making habitats under the water, which support many of the other industries like shellfish industries, fisheries, and so on. And also the brown, like the kelps, they're often nurseries for many other fish. And you can get some idea there of the importance of the different groups for the different coverage. The next slide. Now, this slide is really important because it gives you the context of where seaweeds sit with all the other photosynthetic organisms. So you can see there that in terms of area, seaweeds, they're by far the largest photosynthetic group of organisms across the planet in these marine ecosystems. So they far outweigh seagrass beds, coral reefs, mangroves, and salt marshes. But I should just say also that coral reefs are often made of 90% of some of those red seaweeds as well. So all these habitats are incredibly important for seaweeds. Next slide, please. So I think we've lost, have we? No, I think we're okay. I think we might have lost another slide there. Have we? No, that's okay. Okay, next slide. Right. So why do seaweeds need protection? Well, they desperately need protection. And the reason for that is, I've given you some idea of the importance of seaweeds, but if you compare those with other, say, terrestrial ecosystems and other marine ecosystems, they're 5 times greater than all the coral reefs and a quarter of the size of the Amazon rainforests. But they're declining at an annual rate of 2 times that of the coral reefs and more than 4 times that of the rainforest. And I have to say, too, that there are areas of the world where the kelp forests, maybe as much as 90 to 100% of the kelp forests gone. And unless we can get global seaweed temperatures down, all these predictions, in my opinion, in terms of how much you can farm and all these things, it's going to be extremely difficult. Next slide, please. So what are we doing about it? Well, we've published our State of the World Seaweeds report. That's Corrigan et al. In the previous slide, 2025. And now what we're doing is we're leading a Seaweed Breakthrough. This is at the Natural History Museum through Global Seaweed Superstar and also through Global Seaweed Protect, which are funded by the UK government. And this is a fantastic initiative through the United Nations. And we're mobilizing global action with the view to accelerating a coordinated response to seaweed conservation. And so this aims to protect the seaweeds through the high-level Climate Champion 2030 Breakthrough Agenda. We will be straddling both conservation and food, and the project aligns with the international climate, biodiversity, human well-being, and the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiative commitments. And it provides a framework for all stakeholders. We heard earlier from Madagascar how important it is about the sort of whole world, bringing everybody together for equity, the future of the seaweed habitats, and for the millions of lives that depend on them globally. So over the next year, we'll be working with a panel of experts. We'll be working with as many stakeholders around the world as possible. And we hope to be able to launch the Seaweed Breakthrough at the COP in next November, all being well, in a year's time, just over a year's time. And the last slide, please. So thank you very much. You can find out more at the QR code. And if you'd like any more information on this, I'll be very happy to provide that to you. But for me, it's a passion. We have to protect the seaweeds. It's crucially important for SDG 14, but it's crucially important really for all those livelihoods as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliette. Your passion for seaweeds comes through loud and clear, and we're just delighted that you were able to join us for this. So do please check out the Seaweed Breakthrough online. It's very important, and I think your slide that shows how important seaweeds are compared to those other breakthroughs and how they end the interactions between them, that's really important. And showing the scientific leadership that you do, it's really important to the Global Seaweed Coalition that the work remain grounded in science. There's a lot of excitement about it, and the excitement is grounded in science. Now it is my pleasure to turn to, unfortunately, Chantaline has been held up, but we have her colleague who is, I am delighted to introduce David Vivas-Egui, who is absolutely tireless in promoting the seaweed agenda within UN Trade and Development and in these global spaces. David has been our partner since Lisbon in 2022. Guess it was with the UNOC 2. So David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to be sharing some slides because I have some data to show. Basically, I will be talking about SDG 17. Can you see the slides? Can they be seen?
I think that Caroline, you're able to share them, right? Yeah.
Okay, then I stop sharing. Basically, SDG 17 is an implementing SDG. It's 6 global partnerships.
Sorry, David, we did need you to share your slides.
Sorry
about that.
Sorry about it. Then start sharing again. Sorry again. The point was that SDG 17 is fundamental to implement all other SDGs. One key element is that the seaweed sector has an impact on many SDGs from 1 to 16, but SDG 17 is about how we can mobilize trade, finance, data, and technology for scaling up this sector, but also economic prosperity. In this angle, SDG 17 tend to focus a lot on LDCs and seeds, who usually are participating, but only incipient in a very relatively new terms in the seaweed value chain. That's what has been mentioned today. We propose at the Ocean Conference the creation of a UN Global Seaweed Initiative within the UN and with many partners of different nature, academic, private sector, scientific, etc., to be able to use this platform as the partnership for seaweed. Now, when we look at the economic angle, or the angle of UNTAC is always the economic and trade, the global seaweed market is estimated at 17 billion, but only 1 billion is traded. So about 14% of global of the global market is traded. This is mainly because there is a lot of domestic production internally, which is very important for food security and other aspects. But the trade is growing, and the main traders are basically in Asia, Indonesia, and Republic of Korea first. China is not in the top because they consume a lot internally, but you have very interesting newcomers: Chile, Peru, Ireland, Philippines, United Kingdom, Canada, and also countries like Tanzania. They are not in the top, but they are going up in the value chain. Now, when we look at finance, the situation is not the best. In finance, only 3 billion of official development assistance is given to the entire ocean economy, 70% of the biosphere, and very little contributions from the private sector, the red bar, and very little also from philanthropic foundations. So it's an underfunded SDG 14, as we know. That also links to 17 because the money goes also into the partnerships linked to the ocean. There is in the NIS commitment by private sector entities, governments, and philanthropic entities to move this amount to close to 8 billion in the next 3 years. Let's hope it's possible. But seaweed is almost inexistent in this type of support. It's very little when it goes there. Now, the other interesting element is the issue of data and policy coherence. We are doing right now mapping that has not been published, but we're trying to contribute to better understand the sector, not only in value terms, but in qualitative terms on the type of regulations that are available there. As we know, seaweed is not regulated even in the Codex Alimentarius. There are not standards in ISOR specifically on seaweed. So it's an under-regulated sector. And when we find regulations, they are applicable usually to food and other elements and not to the seaweed itself. We did a mapping in trade, looking at 340 non-tariff measures, notifications by member states to the WTO one by one. And we identify about almost 40% make reference specifically to seaweed, of 340 that make indirect reference to seaweed. Most of them apply to food-grade seaweed, but there are other elements like allogenic acid, agar-agar, we use it for food and non-food, and many non-food uses, but a very small share of less than 5%. Now, on LDCs and seeds, we have problems in getting data. On production and trade, it's very difficult to get data, so we have a challenge there. But what we can see is that the sector is essentially under-regulated, that is increasingly being regulated at national level, and we need to start transferring those best practices and regulations to the multilateral side. The next one on technology and innovation, as we know, most of the processing of seaweed byproducts and certification technologies, there is an echo, are concentrated in high-income countries. I cannot deal with the echo. What we do?
Yeah, could everybody please mute their mics except for David? Thank you.
Basically, developing countries are facing significant technology transfer and innovation barriers. For example, there are more than 50,000 patents specifically using seaweed as a base for those inventions, mainly from Asia, 3 countries, Japan, China, Republic of Korea, and Japan. A lot of that research has been done by public entities, which is an interesting angle because there is a higher potential for knowledge exchange, which is essential under SDG 17. So we need to think about the type of south-south, but also north-south and east-west. Now, east-west is something new in terms of transfer of technology and access to new technologies from cultivation to byproducts. There is an interesting platform for partnership south-south trade within UNTA called the Global Trade System Trade Preference for Developing Countries, where developing countries can reduce tariff and address technological barriers among them. So there is also other platforms we can use. Finally, as mentioned by several today, as a response to not only SDG, but all SDGs, we make this proposal to have this UN Global Seaweed Initiative. All member states are invited. We would like to have more member states joining so it can become more solid. We have also many academics, private sector, and scientific entities joining. The idea, it becomes a center of coordination, exchange, innovation, and can be used as an enabler for trade, investment, and regulatory alignment. So it's an operationalization of all SDGs plus 17 in specific terms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you for highlighting the importance of data. This is an issue that really plagues the seaweed sector. And also thanks for speaking about the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, which is led by Madagascar, France, and Indonesia for now. We do expect to see other countries joining this. And it's great to see the technical support coming from UN entities and other institutions. And this is what leads me now to turn to our colleague Jan Matas, who is here in the room, the North American director of the CNRS, the French National Research Center. Jan, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here. Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here today. So I will be talking a little bit about CNRS, the Centre National de Recherche Scientifique in France, its role, and then I will address some of the SDG 17's targets. So CNRS is a French national research organization which employs more than 30,000 people across diverse disciplines, spanning from particle physics through chemistry, biosciences, informatics, all the way to social sciences and humanities. CNRS manages a yearly budget of about 4.5 billion euros that are coming from the French government, European funds, industrial partners, as well as from philanthropy donors. CNRS has a genuine responsibility to ensure scientific research and innovation that serve the cause of sustainable progress for the benefit of society. CNRS is a community of people with passion for what they do, for the research they do, people open to international collaboration with colleagues, sharing same values, and who believe that science is necessary for achieving a common good. CNRS can be considered as a historical home of Global Seaweed Coalition created in 2021 by Vincent Doméziel and Philippe Potin in order to support the safe and sustainable scale-up of the seaweed sector grounded in science. Philippe Potin, senior CNRS researcher, is a co-founder of the coalition and also presently its scientific director. Hosting also the coalition scientific officer, Melanie Cuev, who may be actually online, the CNRS is at the heart of the coalition, ensuring the coordination of scientific activities, circulation of ideas, and helping to maintain its long-term dynamics in partnership, of course, with other institutional partners. CNRS is particularly well positioned for seaweed research and more broadly for algae research. For example, just to mention the keyword algae, CNRS authored more than 1,000 publications in the last 10 years. With France's large marine territories, CNRS has also a long history of operating marine stations, research labs, as well as hosting marine biology researchers in these infrastructures, all in partnership with French universities and especially with Sorbonne University. France and CNRS is also European coordinator for the European research infrastructure on marine biology. And finally, CNRS supports many other national, international, and interdisciplinary research projects related to marine biology, including algae. In 2019, on the occasion of its 80th anniversary, the CNRS created a Foundation of CNRS, whose mission is to further contribute to the development and promotion of the scientific and technological research in France and worldwide. It focuses its efforts on funding fundamental exploratory research, high-risk, high-stakes projects requiring swift support related to the need of the research, as well as attracting and supporting new talents. And I think it's very important for all the branch of science. The foundation of CNRS is willing to continue to support the coalition and the emergence of the UNGSI by temporarily hosting multi-donor trust fund in order to implement projects under this initiative. So finally, to talk about the SDG 17, it's a part of the mission, the Global Seaweed Coalition, to help the seaweed sector make a significant contribution to the SDGs. And among the 19 targets, the coalition has already made contribution to several of them. First, it immobilized additional financial resources for developing countries from multiple sources through call for proposals. Indeed, thanks to the initial support from Lloyd Register Foundation, the coalition provided seed funding for 32 projects in 27 countries. It enhanced North-South, South-South, and triangular regional and international collaboration and access to science, technology, and innovation. I would like to underscore this point, as the coalition has also prioritized science by supporting the emergence of regional seaweed research centers covering themes such as biosecurity, genetic resources across multiple countries. It has enhanced international support for implementing effective and targeted capacity building in developing countries, particularly through projects in East Africa and Southeast Asia. It has also encouraged and promoted effective public-private, and civil society partnership and brought together members from diverse backgrounds in government bodies such as Strategic Advisory Board and the Scientific Council of the Coalition. And finally, we are convinced that the creation of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative would significantly enhance contribution to the SDG 17's target, especially by including improved coordination among existing mechanisms, particularly at the UN level, ensuring policy coherence for sustainable development, further strengthening of capacity building in developing countries, including least developed countries and small island states, and also by significantly increasing the availability of high quality, timely, and reliable data relevant to seaweed in diverse national contexts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very very much, Jan. And I think let's have another round of applause for what you said. I hope everybody caught that the CNRS Foundation is prepared to host temporarily the multi-donor trust fund that could accept contributions as we move into the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. So this is an example of partnership at its best. CNRS has been a trusted partner of the Global Seaweed Coalition since its inception, and David is representing as we bring in newer partners to the work on seaweed. Just thank you to both of you. And so let's have another round of applause. And that's for all our panelists. So for those who've been able to stay online, there will be questions soon. We are now going to turn to, please back up. We're going to turn to Anushka Concepcion, who is the chair of Global Seaweed Coalition's Strategic Advisory Council. Anushka, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. It's so wonderful to see everyone here today and everyone online. Thank you very much for participating in this event. I think it's safe to say seaweed really meets a lot of the SDGs. Who knew, right? So taking all the information that the wonderful speakers have presented on today, I wanted to bring up the Seaweed Pledge as part of my reflection. And if you're not familiar with that, there's going to be a link that's put into the chat for the Seaweed Pledge. And if you have any questions about it or you're not able to access it, you can always reach out to the Global Seaweed Coalition's Secretariat. But I wanted to, again, switch to the pledge. The Global Seaweed Coalition recently released a Seaweed Pledge, which is a list of actions that the private sector and civil society leaders, two very important groups, can commit to undertake that support the development of a regenerative, sustainable, and inclusive global seaweed industry. So these actions align with the guiding principles from the Seaweed Breakthrough that Dr. Brody had mentioned. And these principles will contribute to the safe and sustainable development, as well as the actions of the Seaweed Pledge to the development of the global seaweed sector. So again, just reiterating, I think many individuals will be surprised by how many SDGs that the seaweed sector can meet with just one very beautiful, innocuous organism called seaweed. And by signing the pledge, the private industry and civil society leaders, and I'm harping on these two entities because they're very, very important for the longevity of the seaweed sector's growth and sustainability, that these can demonstrate how they're meeting the SDGs through a seaweed lens. So to review the following SDGs from, which is the focus of today's panel, are directly met through the adoption of these actions listed in the pledge. And I'm not going to go through the pledge, but what I wanted to do is highlight specific indicators from the SDGs that directly align with the pledge. So folks that sign the pledge can then say we are directly meeting these SDGs through these specific indicators. So let's start with SDG 5. It directly meets, language from the pledge directly meets SDG 5. So to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So empowerment of women is directly stated in the pledge. SDG 8 promotes sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. So an indicator is generating sustainable livelihoods for small-scale farmers and harvesters. Again, directly stated in the pledge that you sign it, if you're signatory, you are committing through your actions to support smallholders. SDG 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development by providing habitat for marine biodiversity, again, coming from the pledge. And indirectly meeting, I should say really aligning with SDG 3, good health and well-being, and SDG 17, strengthen the partnership and means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development, again, also met directly by the Seaweed Pledge. But I also want to talk about the SDGs that we weren't talking about today, that were not the focus. And these include SDG 1, so no poverty. Seaweed ending poverty in all its forms and supporting indigenous communities, women, and youth. So equal access to economic resources, tenure rights over land and natural resources, and increasing resiliency in the face of climate change and economic shocks. That's what Seaweed can do, and again, directly aligns with the pledge. SDG 2, Zero Hunger. So supporting the seaweed sector will enhance food and nutrition security. SDG 9, Seaweed supports innovation, industry, and infrastructure by implementing advanced technologies for appropriate and responsible methods of production and green processing for safe and sustainable scale-up, as well as investing in research to address knowledge gaps and diverse applications of seaweed. Thanks to CNRS is leading a lot of the support in advancing innovation. SDG 10, reduced inequalities. Seaweed ties into combining SDG 1 and SDG 5 to support SDG 10, to use the seaweed sector as a key driver of empowerment for women, youth, indigenous peoples, and local communities in low-income nations. SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. So by striving for robust quality assurance systems, specific policies, and regulations to ensure safe traceability, sustainability, and consistent standards across the sector. A lot of efforts in the seaweed world are focused on that specifically, on that meeting that SDG. SDG 13, climate action. Seaweeds can support this by enhancing water quality to mitigate ocean acidification and support biodiversity. Also, under or collaborates with SDG 14. SDG 15, life on land. Seaweed can support life on land. Yes, it indirectly aligns with the use of seaweed as biostimulants and alternative feeds for livestock and poultry. So seaweed can do many, many wonderful things. And by adopting many of these actions, by signing onto the Seaweed Pledge, you can directly meet 9 SDGs, again, with just seaweed, but also indirectly meeting all of the other SDGs, all 17. So really to wrap up, I think this is a good opportunity to leverage the power of seaweed to not only garner more support by the private sector and civil society leaders, but for others, setting the example for others also to sign the Seaweed Pledge, adopt these actions laid out in the Seaweed Pledge, and it can further support achieving SDGs globally, so across all different sectors as well. So again, just want to say the link should be in the chat. I encourage everyone to sign the pledge. Send the link to the pledge to others who you may work with, who you may know. To any good work folks are doing, get them to sign the pledge. And I think it will sort of leverage all the knowledge and support seaweed has to really elevate seaweed to, I think, the platform that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Anushka. Somebody else who's been with this work since inception, since before we had a strategic advisory council. And thanks for pointing to the Seaweed Pledge. Some of you may have seen, Azadine posted a link in the chat, and it's going to be available on the Global Seaweed Coalition website. Seaweeds, yes, this event is about seaweeds' contributions to the SDGs under review, but we could not miss the opportunity to point out that seaweed contributes to most, if not all the others. So thank you so much, Anushka. We have a few minutes, a very few minutes for questions, and I understand there aren't any questions online. So let me first turn here in the room, if there's anybody from a member state who would like to ask a question or simply make an intervention. And, oh, please.
Well, I'm Yanti from the Permission of Indonesia.
We may need you to speak up.
I'm Yanti from the Permission of Indonesia.
Welcome.
Thank you for organizing this meeting. Indonesia is very honored actually to have been able to actually launch the coalition with Madagascar and France. And my apologies that the ambassador could not be here today to represent us, but he's, as Indonesia is a very big archipelagic nation. we think it's a very important initiative that we're doing, and we hope nations will, would like to join the coalition. Of course, the pledges that you just mentioned, please do mixed pledges. We encourage member states to do that, and to make this coalition something meaningful for the world. That's our message. Thank you.
That's a wonderful message. Thank you so much. And really to underscore that Indonesia, we appreciated at the UN Ocean Conference, Indonesia didn't just come in and say, yes, we are going to sign up for it. Indonesia asked critical, constructive questions. And that's what's important in a partnership, to make sure that it's right for everybody in the partnership. So we're grateful to see you here. Thank you so much. Let's see if there are any other interventions. Member State?
Yeah, I would like to know how safe.
Could you please identify yourself?
Yeah, this is Sherry Wang. I do business marketing consulting.
Oh, can we hold off just for me to check whether there's any other member state, and then I will turn to other questions. So any other member state interventions? Going once, twice. Now please, Sherry.
Okay, I would like to know the seaweed safety to eat because Japan was released the nuclear waste to the ocean. If the Japan seaweed and the Korean seaweed, that's the main market, in USA, are safe or not.
So,
how about Mexico?
Great
seaweed?
question.
Mexico
Thank you so much. So we have Ike, and we also may have Shakuntala, but Ike, to you first.
For many years, we've
And
imported.
let's make sure, repeat the question because.
The question was whether or not consumption of Japanese and Korean-based seaweeds, especially nori, would have any radionuclides from the Fukushima water release efforts. So all the nori that's imported from Korea, China, and Japan gets first sent to a laboratory in Nevada, where it's tested for radionuclides and also heavy metals. And so those certificates are sent out with each lot that's sold, at least by the company that, from the 20 years of importing seaweeds from Asia, from my perspective.
How about Mexico Bay? They have oil pollution.
No, I've never imported Mexican seaweeds into the United States.
So this is an important question, and this is part of what the Global Seaweed Coalition has been about. We're very much grounded in safety. We haven't talked very much about this, and Azadine may have posted more information in the chat, but we were founded to support the safe and sustainable scale-up of the seaweed sector, grounded in science, which I said. What I didn't say is we're also supporting 3 different kinds of safety: operational safety, occupational operational safety, environmental safety, and consumer safety. Now, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on standards, done on testing. So this is part of why the UN Global Seaweed Initiative and getting support for it is so important. Very recently, seaweed began to be included in conversations at the Food and Agriculture Organization. There's an organization called the Codex Alimentarius that is housed at FAO. Getting seaweed in those conversations is important to ensuring that there are those standards. But as Dr. Levine has just said, the seaweed that is on the markets now in countries that we understand, like Japan, like Korea, like the US, and in Europe, these seaweeds are rigorously tested. Let's go to another question. Yes.
Just a quick intervention. I'm with the Pew Charitable Trusts. My name is Masha Cunning, and I'm here with my colleague, Rebecca Harris. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this discussion so far. Just to expand the geographical scope of our conversation, we're investing resources in indigenous and community-led seaweed farming or projects in Alaska and British Columbia. And part of that effort also involves collection of ecological baseline data and also ensuring that we have indicators to monitor positive and negative impacts of these farms as they come online. So I just wanted to introduce ourselves. I don't know, Becca, if you wanted to say anything else.
It's a very new project. I'll stand up. Sorry. It's a very new project. It started last year, so we're just getting it off the ground. But we wanted to make sure that when we invest in seaweed and aquaculture, especially in that region that doesn't have a very large industry right now. It's done sustainably and also done with local communities. So that's predominantly where we're focused right now, but I mean, who knows where it could go, but that's what we're.
Wonderful. It's fantastic to know about your support. Thank you so much. And who knows, maybe we can,
if you want to learn more.
and maybe we can keep the conversation open about potential other ways to partner.
Sounds great.
Let's see, are there any other questions? Helen?
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Oh,
Edith first.
Okay.
Thank you. I had a question that she touched on it a little
Please,
bit, but
please
yeah.
identify yourself.
All right, thank you. My name is Editrudi Tukanga from Tanzania. I'm the founder and executive director of EMEDO. It's a national organization in support of small-scale fisheries in Tanzania. But we also work with the women in the in the seaweed farming in Zanzibar especially. But I'm also involved in the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network, having now membership in 44 countries in Africa. So it's been very interesting listening to almost all the panelists and presenters. They mentioned the key role that women play in seaweed production. Now, with the climate change, women now are forced to venture into the offshore waters, where it's very risky. And I'm just wondering if the coalition and the partners I had from World Bank, my brother Harrison there, it was very interesting also to listen to my brother, Dr. Mahatente Pobert, but also Dr. Shakuntala, very good that I'm seeing you here in this platform as well. So are there any plans to address safety issues, particularly drowning? I was in Zanzibar 3 weeks ago, facilitating women's conversation around seaweed, planning and all that. There was a story from a lady who was doing the normal chores around seaweed. Her child died of drowning. So what are the plans? This is a very serious issue. I just wanted to bring to this attention and see if there are any plans and thoughts already in your programs about safety, especially drowning prevention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Edith Prudent. So we do have a question in the chat, but we also have to move on. So moderator privileges, I'm going to point it out to everybody. How can the private sector contribute to the Global Seaweed Initiative? If nothing else, please do go to the Seaweed Pledge, as Anushka was announcing, and we can take that from there. We do need to turn now to our next speaker. We are privileged to have with us the Deputy Ambassador for the Ocean and Poles of the Republic of France, Mr. Jacques Tellier. Ciao, over to you.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Nicola. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm very happy to be working with you all on this little seaweed initiative. I'm very honored to represent France and stand with you all today to deliver some closing remarks. I'll be as short as possible on this, I think, remarkable side event. The breadth of the discussions and the variety of speakers is something that struck me. And I want to reaffirm our commitment as well as France to an ocean-based future that is inclusive, sustainable, and visionary within the SDGs. I was about to say SDG 14, but Anushka, you said no, all of the entire SDG framework. Yeah, this, I think seaweed is one of the ocean's most extraordinary gifts and one of its most underused. And in recent years, we've witnessed a strong rise in the re-examination of it. And I think this re-examining of seaweed as a strategic resource for food security, climate resilience, innovation, blue economy, embodies what the future demands. Low climate impact production, circularity, and a more sustainable blue economy. The Seaweed Coalition was at Monaco and in Nice for the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, and I think the discussions there prove strong interest from the private sector in particular. But despite the promise, I think the sector is still very fragmented, and I think what we are lacking is not opportunities, really. It is coordination, global leadership, which hopefully is what we're sure that, not just hoping, that the United Nations Global Initiative for Seaweed will be the key platform for this, and it becomes more visible. And again, I think you demonstrated this with this side event today. So I think what France sees in this initiative is a compass that guides global action. I think it's also a hub to connect knowledge, standards, and innovation across borders. I think that's a very important element. It's an important element that's come out as well of UNOC. It's also, and in truth, your point was important, what the Pew Foundation was saying. It's an important element for giving a voice to small producers, to coastal communities, to the youth, to women, and to indigenous populations. And I think, first and foremost, it is a catalyst, and I think that's really what we need. A catalyst that will be able to scale up seaweed solutions to meet the SDGs from nutrition, carbon mitigation, biodiversity protection, and more generally, economic justice. And I think all of that is testament to the potential of seaweed and of the coalition as a whole. As announced at UNOC, the Seaweed Initiative will be supporting the building of this international coordination about supporting science and innovation through global partnerships. And for this, we really need the support system of a wider, broader coalition of member states, of private sector actors, and of civil society organizations of all walks of life. And I think what we've been seeing so far is precisely this. And this is the only way we can build a sustainable and resilient and ethical seaweed economy. So for us, for France, the UN Global Initiative embodies this really powerful multilateral platform that unites our efforts and our ambitions, using science to deliver the SDGs. I think the science part, and CNIS is here as well, and that's important. And I think the next step for us is UNGA, of course, in September. And I just wanted to reiterate that France will continue to approach other member states to join the coalition, to expand it, in particular in the European Union. And I think it is very important that we broaden the membership. So I think what I wanted to conclude with is that really we are here to help elevate the seaweed beyond a resource and to make it a proper solution for the health of future generations and the health of our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We've heard from our 3 founding member states. Thank you so much for speaking on behalf of France. And we look forward to talking with you and with any other member states interested in how we can have a really successful road to the UN General Assembly. We are looking to do a launch event there, as was announced at the UN Ocean Conference. Thank you so much, Charles. Now, we have a few last-minute additions to the agenda. Bernice McLean of African Union Development Agency, in the spirit of that, getting more countries on board. You've got about 30 seconds, Bernice. You're online. Please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Nicola. I'll be very quick. Just to say thanks again to the organizers. We're very privileged to be a co-organizer of this and to continue to push the agenda at the continental level. I'd like to just say that the coordinated approach is absolutely essential. In Africa, we've had farming since the 1970s and are seeing a huge amount of interest in the sector, in development of the sector. But many of the member states are now coming from different levels of development of the sector. So the global initiative will really help to not only scale the existing initiatives, to solve some of the problems, as you heard from our fishnet earlier, but also to help those countries that are really starting at the beginning to leapfrog and do the right processes to develop this as a safe and prosperous opportunity. So thanks very much. We'll continue to support and to be engaged. Thanks.
Thank you, Bernice. Really welcome the support of AUDA. And now, this is mostly going to be relevant for the people in the room, but we did want to give an opportunity for everybody to see what this group is going to be enjoying. Chef Andrew Wilkinson has offered to share his Seaweedish meatballs with us here. So, Andrew.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be a white jacket at the table. Yes. And 2 hours ago, I had no idea that I was having an impact on so many SDGs in the world. My culinary mission was 2 years ago, was to try to move the needle of kelp, and I chose to move it in K-12 school nutrition feeding. So I created the world's first Seaweedish meatball. We've all had Swedish meatballs, thank you very much. I never underestimate the thoughts you have at 2 in the morning. So from the left, it can be fine dining. On the right, it can be a school lunch meal. It's plant-based food at its best, but also we get to tell the story of climate smart food to this demographic of the largest restaurant concept in the world. We feed 4.6 billion meals a year. So it's incredible. It's moved into higher ed. The really good news, on Friday, the world's largest food distributor, Cisco, has taken it national, and it'll be in every state in the country. So seaweed is having its moment right now out there in the food service world. So thank you, and I look forward to having you try.
Thank you, Andrew. It's time for seaweed. Runa may remember that when we were in Korea. It's time for seaweed. So thank you so much to all of you here. Thanks to our incredible organizing partners at UNCTAD online and here in the room. Thank you, Juan Jose. Thanks, Julia. And thanks, David, for everything that you did behind the scenes. Rafe, to all of our speakers. Caroline, super special shout out to you because you didn't know you were going to be doing this until a few minutes before the meeting. Thanks also to the GSC team. Thanks to the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition for your support as always. Thank you to the member states who are supporting the Global Seaweed Initiative. And finally, a promotional word. If you haven't already become a member of the Global Seaweed Coalition, please do. It's free. That's how you get information about our events and the like. Go to the website. There's a tab for that. We hope you enjoyed this event, that you found it informative, inspiring, especially any member states who are listening and who might be thinking of contributing financially. You have heard money is needed for SDG 14, yes, but also for the seaweed agenda. We look forward to seeing many of you here not here in this room, but here in September for the UN General Assembly. Thank you all so much. And now we can stop recording, and those of us here can enjoy the seaweed snacks.